All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to JP Football Fanatics here tonight. I hope everybody's enjoying the weekend. I hope everybody's ready for the Super Bowl weekend to start. The Super Bowl game starting tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. and it's going to be called on Fox Sports, and it's going to be by the commentators of the I've heard of. It was going to be Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, who's going to be on the call for that game. So should be looking forward to a really exciting game for that weekend. So hope everybody's enjoying the weekend. Hope everybody's enjoying what's going to be happening. We're definitely going to be covering tonight a lot about the Super Bowl, and we're also going to be talking about one coaching hiring that's official that had occurred this week, and we're going to talk more a little bit about it tonight. So, with all that being said, I also want to talk. I also wanted to introduce you to you all tonight. He's been on with me for the last few weeks. He's been doing an amazing job with everything that he's been doing. And that is my buddy Scott. Scott, thank you again for coming on. It really means a lot. So welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here as always.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a fun night. We'll definitely keep it as formal as possible. And before we really get started here, guys, just make sure if you see that like button, drop a like on this video, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you guys like about the channel. Let us know what you guys like about the things that I post here on this YouTube page every now and then. And if you want me to post new content, guys, I'm telling you, I'm here for you. I want to be able to help you out as best as possible. And I'm here for you guys. So whatever content you want me to cover, something new that you want me to cover this week, let me know. Also, if you can too, see that subscribe button? It says subscribe and it's written in red. Click on it. I'm telling you, I need the subscribers. I need the people that really want to be going on with being able to keep up with with what I post on this channel. And it's really going to help me come a long cause, and hopefully it'll turn into something that is once a hobby, maybe becoming something bigger for the future. So do that as well, guys. So like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that way you guys can be notified every single time of when I go live. So I do have Scott with me on speakerphone for tonight. I know we're having a lot of technical difficulties with what's going on, um, from either one of our sides. So he's going to be on the line with me for a bit, and we'll definitely be able to go through this way like we did last week. So without further ado, ladies and gents, let us get started. I'll start sharing my screen here. If everybody can see it, that's good. Scott is still on the line on my phone. I called him, so we'll be able to talk with him through there too. So there's a couple things we want to talk about tonight, but most of tonight is going to be about the Super Bowl for tomorrow. But let's go ahead and let's talk about it. So here we go. First things first is one of the only coaching hirings that is official that has occurred this week. We might see some that's happening later on this week. I think we're going to see a lot of crazy things that's going to be going on during the time frame of after the Super Bowl, and it's going to be with Brian Flores. So everybody knows who Brian Flores is already. He was the Miami Dolphins head coach for 3 seasons. 3 seasons, just about, if I'm not mistaken. He's coached for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He also coached for Tua for a couple of years. Things didn't exactly go in his favor with how him and his relationship with Tua went. So Miami decided to part ways with him, and with Flores and his capability of being able to coach defense, that definitely took away a lot from Miami and how talented the defense is and what have you. So what I do have available right now is that Brian Flores, as of earlier this week, Brian Flores is now the new defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. So, one of the biggest things, I guess I'll start off first a little bit with Miami. Everything that I'm going through right now is the Brian Flores. He got hired from Minnesota and what have you. So, I have that up with me. I also have Scott on the phone with me too, and we're going to talk about this one. I personally like this hiring. I do have a couple of questions about the way of how this is going to work out. I know Minnesota does have a couple decent playmakers on defense. I know there's a couple ones. I know what's his name? Patrick Peterson is definitely one of them. The corners are a little suspect. I'm not exactly crazy for the way their corners are, what have you. There are some good defensive linemen for the defense of Minnesota, but a lot of the times within the last couple of years is going to be it's a little sluggish. So Scott, if you can just talk about this hiring. What do you think about this hiring? Is this something that Miami should definitely go through with moving forward? Because I think it's a good one for sure.
You mean the Vikings?
Yes, I keep mistaking. It's the Vikings and yeah, I keep Minnesota, Miami. They're definitely so. Just to, talk about this hiring with Minnesota.
Yeah.
What do you think?
James is a big Miami fan.
No, I'm
Secretly.
no, I'm not.
No,
No.
Flores. I don't know. I mean, I don't know his history that much outside the Patriots. I don't think he actually wasn't a defensive coordinator with the Patriots. He was just I think he was like a special teams guy, or he's like a positional coach. That's at least what I heard before he got hired by the Vikings. For the Vikings, I think it's a decent hire, but not that great of a hire.
Yeah.
Still have me on screen there.
Yeah, you're on my screen here. You're on my phone.
Yeah, because I can't see you on screen.
So go ahead. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah. I don't know that many players outside of Pat Peterson as well, but I think it's a decent hire. I think when they had defense for when he was the coach for the Dolphins, I think he was a decently good. Their defense was highlighted, but I don't think it was like top. But it was one of the things that kept them in most games. It's definitely different now than it was when he was their coach. They're really offensive. Like this last year when McDaniels came in, they was mainly an offensive team more than defensive team.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I for one was always kind of like a big believer in Brian Flores. I kind of always thought that Brian Flores was the guy that really got the Dolphins going when he was the coach for the Dolphins. We always found Tua. We always saw Tua as being like the problem for the Dolphins and why they couldn't succeed and everything like that. We never really saw from like a coaching perspective in some ways, but once, like you said, you brought up a good point. Once Mike McDaniel was hired for this team, definitely did change things quite a bit. And it's definitely tough to go from a defensive guy who coordinated the defense pretty well. I thought for the most part, I think that's what with the Dolphins that kept them in most games was that defense. For those couple of years of Tank the Tua year and the year that Tua was drafted and the year after as well. So there's definitely a lot of things that really goes on with that perspective, but I definitely do think this is a pretty good hiring for Minnesota. As far as like how they're going to be next year's terms of defense, I think they'll be better. But I don't think this defense for Minnesota is still really anywhere special. I think they have a long ways to go to really where they once were with Mike Zimmer under your belt. So I definitely don't know how well this is going to really work out, but I hope this works out because I think Brian Flores is a good coach to get them to where they want to be. But as far as talent wise and everything like that, definitely not the most talented team as they could be, like with the Miami defense, because there was playmakers and there was good corners and safeties and secondary for Miami that was better. But at the same time, too, there was also a lot of issues too, with the whole issues with like the Tua situation with him and his relationship with Tua, and just as a whole with the organization. The organization for Miami is a very one of the more dysfunctional ones. They're more of a organization that kind of doesn't. They want to kind of sweep things under the rug and pretend as if they never happen. So that's definitely one thing to really keep in mind of as well. But we'll see how this works out. I hope this is something that they can continue doing moving forward. and we'll see. But as far as like everything else goes, um, I think it's a decent hiring. We'll see what happens later on in the season, and we'll see exactly how it really goes down, because that's really the most important thing. Is the Vikings are a franchise that's never won a Super Bowl before. They've had success in years past, but this time is one of the things that they got to get themselves going if they want to be successful.
So we were talking about the Vikings there. I thought you were talking about the Dolphins for a second.
No, no, he got hired from the Vikings. I was comparing and contrasting the differences of, with Miami's defense being good, and then with the Vikings defense is still not very good. A decent hire that might get the Vikings back to where they kind of were a little bit, but they still have a long ways to go to be where they want to be defensively.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's what really got them out of that game. I mean, when the Giants and the Vikings first played during the regular season, the Vikings won, I think, by a field goal, and then they in the playoffs in that divisional round, it was a wild card. Yeah, during the wild card, they really got like put on notice for being the worst of the two teams. Not to say the Giants are anything good, but they really got exposed in that game.
They did. They absolutely did. And the Giants were able to beat them in every which way possible. The Vikings team that was good last year. They were pretty good last year. I thought they were kind of a team that could have kind of sneaked their way through a little bit, maybe give a couple teams the edge a little bit. But like you said, the Giants, like I predicted, the Giants would go in there and they would beat them the way that they did, because the Giants were able to do things with Saquon Barkley, and knowing the Vikings defense was very susceptible to a lot of those things.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think it was like during I think it was within and inside a month, because I think they played it in the end of, it might have been like Christmas Day or like the day after Christmas when they played. I know it wasn't that long. It was either 3 weeks or 4 weeks in between the time that they first played and then they played again in the playoffs. So it was crazy how quickly it went from being a 3-point game to being, I don't know what, the Giants won by like 10 points or something like that, didn't they?
They won by 7. It was 31-24. They needed a touchdown and an extra point to tie the game. So it was a very close game. It was a touchdown separation kind of a game for both teams.
Yeah, but did the Giants lead like majority of the game, right?
Yeah, they led for most of that particular game. They were mostly in control that game. I mean, the Vikings had a couple of twists and turns a little bit. They kind of had some life brought back into them, but just not enough to sustain them to a win. And the Giants controlled most of that game, I felt like, when watching it. So that's why I'm saying this defensive coordinator for the Vikings that was previous was not being able to accomplish with what he needed to do. So I'm thinking Brian Flores coming to Minnesota to to be their defensive coordinator, I think is going to bring a little bit of a spark in. It's not going to be a great defense right away. I think he's going to have some work to do, and I think in the draft he'll also probably start to get a little bit involved in what he can and can't do, and what the players that he does want and what he does seem well in, because he is a defensive minded coach, and that's obviously the reason why he's a defensive coordinator for this team. But they'll definitely be back at some point to being where they want to be, I feel like.
Like strong on both sides, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because last year they were just mainly offensive team. They were like the Dolphins. They were really one sided because they won games mostly by beating you by how many points they scored. I mean, if anybody looked at the teams, we heard all year, if you listen to like fantasy podcasts or any media podcasts that cover the Vikings, they were, what was it, 7-7 in one score games or something like that, or 13-13 or something like that. I remember you told me the stat, but I forget.
Yeah, they were in the regular season, they were 11-0 in close games.
In one score games, which is crazy.
Yeah, and the rest of the games that they lost to were all blowouts. The Cowboys, the Eagles, And the Lions game really, the second time in Detroit, really wasn't a very close game whatsoever. And that, those are three losses right there. And they also did lose one other game, and they got beat up by the Packers too. So they really lost four games. So
Yeah, and it's funny that they had that stat. It's like not like a coincidence for them, but it's like a weird thing because like if you go back 1 year prior, I believe the Lions had the same stat, but on the opposite end, where the Lions lost like every game by one score.
they did. They had a lot of games that they lost basically on a one score. Like that was the year. That was the first year that Jared Goff was on that team, and Dan Campbell. I believe if we're talking about the same thing, because I know
Yeah,
they lost a lot of close games too.
yeah,
And
and that kind of unique. But I think this is a good hire for the Vikings because um, what's the head coach's name? His name's
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell. He was the offense coordinator for the Rams before he came to the Vikings. So he was an offensive guy. Usually, when an OC becomes a coach, he usually becomes like, it's usually centralized around the offense. With like Mike McDaniel came to the Dolphins. Their offense is super high. Andy Reid for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are really known for their offense. Kyle Shanahan for the 49ers, offensive, not known for their defense. Well, their defense is really good, but that's because he surrounds himself with good defensive coordinators. McVay, every year that he's been there so far outside of this past year, known for their offense. Even with Goff, when he had Goff before he had Stafford, it was known for his offense. It's usually what happens when you take an OC and become a head coach.
Yeah.
So this is why they went out and found a true, legit defensive guy because they were lacking on that side.
Yeah, and I think it's good that Minnesota has both an offensive coach as a head coach and then having a defensive coordinator that is a good defensive coordinator. So they can find themselves in a very evenly balanced kind of a team for next year.
Yeah. I think I don't know if Kevin O'Connell calls his own plays on offense or if they have an OC. That's one of the things I don't really like. It's hard to follow sometimes, like all three coaches, if you have the head coach, OC, and DC, when the head coach himself is either an offensive minded or defensive minded, usually whatever he is minded, that the back or the like if he's defensive minded, the DC or the defensive coach isn't really like a highlight, or if he's offensive minded, like the offensive coach is really never minded. Like for the Chiefs, for example, usually we talk about Andy Reid running the plays. We don't really talk about Vanenemy that much because we never see him. We see Andy Reid. Just for like the Bills, for the longest time when he was the coach, we knew McDaniels, but who the heck was the defensive coach when he was the coach? I couldn't tell you because I didn't know any of them or hear their names. And I follow this stuff. I don't like intensely follow it, but I could name like two or three coaches on the team, but usually when they're an offensive minded, I can't name the OC, and when they're defensive minded, I can't name the DC because they overshadow the person under them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And with a lot of these guys like Josh McDaniels, he's had his fair share of fame when he was the Broncos head coach there for that very short while before he had to return to New England after a horrible start with the Denver Broncos. And then now with him being in Las Vegas, we'll see if he really remains the full season next year as a head coach. But yeah, some of these guys don't really, like you said, they don't really get a lot of fame or a lot of like recognition for what they do because it's mostly the head coach that gets all the credit. They're the ones that really get like, the more of the attention of the media, and they get more attention of everything else too. So Yeah, so Brian Flores has had his time already. Like I would say, like if there are teams that or people that do follow the NFL a little bit, I would probably say they would know a little bit about Flores and what he's able to do and everything like that. So um, so he's like one of those very few guys, like him, McDaniels is one of them. And maybe there's a couple of others too, but not like you said, not a whole lot of them get that recognition.
I think that was the thing with McCarthy and Kellen Moore. I think that McCarthy wanted to run his plays and Kellen Moore wanted to run his plays. So I think like after a while that marriage kind of collapsed because they both wanted to run the offense. And since McCarthy is head of Kellen Moore, they were just like, all right, we're going to let Kellen Moore go instead of blowing up the whole thing. I mean, Jerry Jones run the team. We all know that. We can all agree upon that.
Yeah, definitely.
Just one person had to go down this year for them not making it farther in the playoffs, and that person was Kellen Moore.
Yeah, definitely. And that will definitely be like that could definitely be for a future podcast because I know you and I could definitely go on a tangent about that for hours and hours and hours on that because it's the actual facts. So sorry, Cowboys fans, but you guys know it's true too.
I mean, well, people wanted to link Sean Payton to them, and I'm like, no, Sean Payton's not that dumb. He's not going to go over there and get manipulated, be the puppet to Jerry Jones. It's just after seeing Bill Walsh and who's that other famous coach that they had that Jerry just like went to the waiver side in the 90s because he wasn't that good. I mean, who was the coach before McCarthy?
Jason Garrett.
I knew it was something with a G. He wasn't that like memorable in my mind, but I know like the Cowboys had two big coaches in the 90s when they won their Super Bowls that he just like ran out of town because he had too much power. But luckily, they didn't get Sean Payton, and luckily he just went to my team, happy about it. I think we were discussing before on how much, or no, we weren't discussing. I was discussing it with my one friend. I'm like, we were discussing how players, they complain about contracts nowadays and how much they get paid. You know, they want to change deals when they're on their third year, the rookie deal, and they want to get paid big time or something like that. Lamar is out there right now deciding what he wants to do with his contract. I don't think he's going to leave the Ravens because it's just been good. That's just been a good marriage, and it's like funny because he was like I think he was like the 32nd pick. Yeah, he was the 32nd pick in the draft that year. So he's been real cheap for them for his entire career. So like they should just pay the man.
Yeah, and that could be definitely something that we'll cover in a different video for sure because that's definitely one that we want to be able to cover up and talk about a little bit more because there's definitely a lot that could be discussed about that whole situation with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know if we have it on here, but I know Carr's contract is coming up. If people don't follow it intently, he needs to either be traded or released by the 14th of February, or he's guaranteed $40 million. And the Raiders aren't going to pay him $40 million. So by the 14th, he's on a new team. Let's put it that way.
The 15th.
He loves Carr, so he wants to see him on a new team.
Yeah, no, I that definitely could be something we'll talk about another day too, because I'm sure by the time we do another podcast, he will be signed to another team. Because if they don't trade him, they will have to guarantee him his $40 million on the 15th.
Yeah, and that's just not happening. It can't happen. But if it does, that would be crazy.
Well, I would not be shocked if it does happen. I really would not be shocked if the Raiders decide to let that whole thing go and then let him walk away with $40 million. Because at that point, he can sign with whoever he wants to sign with.
Yeah, that'd be like one of those things like where in the draft in the old days, I think there was a team or two where they didn't make their pick within the 10 or 15 minutes, and they literally lost out on their pick because they couldn't make a pick within the 10 or 15 minutes that they were granted.
Yeah. But again, that definitely will be something that will be probably discussed for next week because I'm sure Carr is going to go to a new team by next week, from the way it's looking right now. And then the whole thing with the Lamar Jackson contract, that'll be definitely another story for another time. So, yeah, those are some really good facts. We'll definitely bring them up in the next podcast we do. But anyway, let's move on to the next thing now. I know we talked about Brian Flores enough. So let's talk about the next thing too. We have the Super Bowl talk. We've got to discuss about what's going on in the Super Bowl, who's winning it, what are the best matchups, what's the best bets that are going on right now. I mean, right now, the last I heard about the Super Bowl, I knew the Eagles were favored. They were slightly favored, and Vegas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but last I checked, it was a point and a half as of last night when I checked it. So that probably could easily change based off of like what's been going on as of lately. We know Patrick Mahomes has from what I heard earlier today, he does have a high ankle sprain. He is playing in this game, but they're probably going to be doing quite a bit of things to ensure that his high ankle sprain is going to go. So you guys heard it last night. I did my prediction last night on the Super Bowl, but there are some things that we do need to talk a little bit more about when it comes to both the coaching styles and when it's going to come down to it's probably going to come down to like who gets the ball last, in my opinion, because I think it's just going to be that high scoring of a game. And we also got to talk about coaches and the bets and everything like that too, because there are some crazy bets that are going out there right now in Vegas. So a lot of crazy things that's going on in the Super Bowl. Both teams that not a lot of people probably really want to see. I'm sure a lot of people want to see like other teams play, and like I know the Bengals, I know a lot of people were upset about that, and the 49ers not being able to get their shot into the Super Bowl. Yeah, Scott kind of gave his a little, his not his Bengals, but we both root for Joe Burrow. We like Joe Burrow a lot. That's one of the things we definitely do agree on. But Scott, I'll hand it over to you a little bit to talk about first, because everybody kind of already knows what my opinion is already. I talked about it last night, but just talk about it a little bit. What do you think's happening in the Super Bowl? And then just talk about like the Vegas line a little bit. When we do get to talk about it a little bit. So just, talk about this. What do you think?
All right, so I don't know if can I see? You can't really see this, can you? Can you see that?
Ever so slightly.
Yeah, all right. So I have like Hurts numbers up here, and okay, yeah. So is this showing from last year? No, this is before the. Wait, now. Oh, okay. This is the divisional and then the championship. No. Oh, yeah. This is prior season. This is before the season. Oh, no. Okay. I see what this says. All right. So I wanted to highlight Hurts's. Was it his ankle or what? What did he hurt during right before the playoffs?
It was his shoulder. No, it was his shoulder. Mahomes is the ankle. Mahomes is the ankle. Hurts is the shoulder.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Okay. So Hurts's numbers. If people didn't look about this, and man, we live in PA. Okay, we're not gonna give out.
Well, you live in PA. I live in New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah. Well, me and James are from the same area. We live approximately 20 or 30 minutes, give or take, between the area. But we also know, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of Eagles fans.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, oh man, I'm not an Eagles fan. My cousins are Eagles fan, but it's I'll support them. During that Patriots-Eagles game, Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl, the last time they were there, obviously I was supporting the Eagles because Tom Brady was part of the Patriots then, and I didn't really like him with the Patriots, and then I came around to him when he was with the Bucs, just because he came I like the competitive side of Tom Brady. And no one has played until they were 45 or 46, so that will probably never happen again. But anyways, going back to Hurts, his numbers in the 2 playoff games are 154 yards passing against the Giants and 121 yards passing against the 49ers. Now, yes, they won both games by 30 points apiece, but that's because Purdy got hurt in the 49ers game, and the Giants were just outmanned in the divisional game. But still, the guy hasn't thrown for more than 160 yards in either of the 2 games that he's played in. And even when he played the Giants in the regular season, that last game of the year that they had to win to get the first seed, he still only threw for 229. The Giants also didn't play their starters in that game, I don't think. You remember that, right?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't play any of their starters in that last week game that they played in Week 18.
So they were playing, basically the Eagles were playing against a second-string team or even a third-string team at that point. So it was like a preseason game for them, basically. And my computer is going to die. So as far as the this matchup, I really lean toward the Chiefs more than the Eagles because Hurts is in his 3rd year, and what's the coach's name? Is it Nick or is it
Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, Nick Sirianni. I was thinking it was Mike Sirianni for some reason. Sirianni is a part of Andy Reid's tree, so technically Andy Reid knows more about Sirianni than Sirianni knows about Andy Reid. But he's also a new coach. He's a younger coach, hasn't done it as long as Andy Reid, and he's only been with the team for like 3 years. So it's still a new thing to both of them. I trust Mahomes more, and I trust Andy more because they've been there before and they've had a history of being there before. Their entire career or marriage together, they've been in the championship, in the NFC or AFC championship for 5 years. And they went to this, they're going to be their 3rd Super Bowl together. And the reason they lost against the Bucs is because they had 4 offensive linemen been out that game. So they were playing with 4 backups. So that's why Mahomes threw for like 350 yards from his back the entire time. So it was a blowout for that case, and only that case. If they were playing with this team, who knows? They could have been, the Chiefs could be 2-0 in the Super Bowl. But I really think and also the Chiefs the Eagles are favored at 1.5, minus 1.5 over the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are the favorite, or the Eagles are the favorite. And I don't know. I don't always go back with James on this betting wise, but I go with my other buddies that bet on basketball and sometimes football. But Vegas likes to rob people of money, and this is, I think, their way of doing it, because I think it opened with the Chiefs as the favorite, and then it went to the Eagles as the favorite. Like when it opened 2 weeks ago, when it was this matchup after the divisional or after the NFC and AFC championship. I think that they're really trying to make everybody bet on the Eagles. That way the Chiefs can win by a field goal in the end.